What's up, everybody? How's it going? Welcome to welcome to the SANDDAO podcast number 60. Thank you so much for the raid, Lucas and Kami, coming from the Sandbox game. What you are in now is the SANDDAO podcast, which is all about the Sandbox DAO. Today is our 60th episode. 60 episodes. We started this last May when the DAO began, and today is one of the concluding episodes for a 4-part mini-series where we went over quite a bit. Started with SANDDAO 34. We looked into the Sandbox DAO's beginnings. And then fast forward to SANDDAO 56. We did a reading of the Cayman Islands law. 57, which was not that long ago, a couple weeks ago, we did a review of the DAO case law. And 59, which we did last week, where we had 2 Cayman Islands lawyers on to help us talk about things, all sorts of things regarding foundation companies, how they're formed. Did a lot of Q&A answering. So today, as I mentioned, is part 4, where we are going to do a read through of the Memo of Association and Articles of Association for the Sandbox DAO Foundation. And a lot of these things you'll have already heard in a previous podcast. Thank you again to Kami and Lucas for rating. Hello, Tom Voxel, King Charles, Jazz Wolf. I see all y'all in the chat. Happy you're here. So, scope of the talk is going to be an analysis of the facts. It's going to be all things that are public. There's no accusation or smear campaign going on here. It's all about transparency to help us to make good decisions within our DAO. Hello, Dr. Metaverso. Salam Avivi. All great people. Disclaimer, I do not represent the Sandbox game or the Sandbox Foundation. I'm not your financial or legal advisor. Nothing I say is to be taken as financial legal advice. I'm just a community member. That's all I am, just a community member. When I say the word SIP, I mean Sandbox Improvement Proposal. When I use the word DAO, I mean Decentralized Autonomous Organization. And when I say SandFam, I mean Sandbox Community, those who participate in the people, product, and purpose of the Sandbox ecosystem. That ecosystem looks a little bit like this. We went over in SANDDAO 31. It's still my highest viewed episode. SANDDAO 31. Just a nice little. What are we left with? How's it all function together? You have on the left. That was SANDDAO 31 way back when. And today's episode is squarely within the DAO. Just look a little bit over here. Or I guess that way. Yeah, that way. It's squarely on the DAO here. And what it is that we do, how we do things. So in the people sector, you have the gamers all the way down to the Sandbox team, who just thank you very much for the raid, for the Sandbox team. The product, everything from the game client to the DAO itself, and the purpose, what was originally described in the white paper back in 2020, and also expounded upon by Sebastian Bourget and Arthur Madrid, who is the co-founders, and then Yatsu, who's chairman of Animoca Brands. All that comes together to form the ecosystem. I am your host, Lanzer. I am president of MetaWorlds, which is a studio we've published two experiences, Floor Droppers and Lava Defense, which was Game Maker Fun 2023 and Builders Challenge 1. And we made it in Alpha Season 4. I still have to pinch myself every day that we actually made it into Alpha Season 4 for Floor Droppers. Today is 4-part series. All right, part 1 was episode 56. That was way back in January. So 2 months ago. That where we went over Cayman Island law. We went over the reading of the various laws. We actually read through them, talked about all the interesting stuff that we had to get through in order to figure out what is it that we are doing in the Cayman Islands. We heard a nice story from Kami about how things became the way they were, how the Cayman Islands became a British protectorate, why they don't have income, taxable income, or any sort of income on corporate revenue, because story goes way back when they saved a British monarch or member of the British royal family. The British monarch, the king at the time, said, "What do you want? It's yours." And they said, "We want to be never taxed by the British Empire." And hence why they still do it. That's a myth. And I will, when I do, probably part 5, I'm going to try and get the lawyers back on, do a Q&A. I'm going to ask them that because they live there. So, and that was part 3. So part 1 was it research into Cayman Island law. We talked about it. We applied it as best we could. And then part 2, we discussed with Ernest Lee, a practicing attorney in the United States. We talked about case law, what has been decided in court. Comparison of DUNAs, LLDs, DAO LLCs, and trusts, Gurney trusts. Part 3 we just did, which was a look into foundation companies, DAOs, and virtual assets. That was a Q&A with Melissa and Carolyn from Walker's Global, a law firm, international law firm, by the way, that is currently servicing DAOs. So all my friends over at ApeCoin DAO and Star Atlas DAO, Walker's Global is helping to represent you. And they are also provide some company management services in the Grand Cayman Islands. Today is part 4. So we're going to recap a little bit how we got here, SANDDAO 34, 56, 57, 59. Then we would be doing a reading of the Memo of Association, the Articles of Association, the Bylaws. Look, take you into the entity search within Cayman Islands Registry so that you can see a lot of this for yourself. And our remaining Q&A. If there is a part 5, it will be to carry over that Q&A with the lawyers from our friends over at Walker's Global, who was fabulous. Take a go look at episode 59. So let's get into this recap. All right, we're gonna breeze through this just like we did with episode 59. Episodes 34, 56, 57, and 59 are the foundation of what you're about to hear now. So we talked a little bit about the relationship map, what I thought was going on when it came to who did what, all the entities at play. It looked a little bit like this, and I still know that there are some things in here that are not correct. So if I can get time to it before the next podcast episode, I'll correct a lot of this. I'm pretty sure Fleet Collective is not a part in play as much as I thought. And then there's some relationship here stuff that has been clarified by Cyril. And there's going to be a future Digging in the Sand podcast episode, which will clarify a lot of this. So wonderful stuff. I mentioned last episode, in episode 59, that it looked weird at first when we first did this in episode 34, way back when, that it looked weird that all of the DAO's key players were on the same street in the same town on the island. But as we looked into episode 56, we started to understand why that actually occurred. There are some really good reasons why Cayman entities are providing all of these services. It's a small island. It's a very small island. So that business district right there is where all this stuff happens. So it's actually not that unusual to Cayman Island, people who live in the Cayman Islands, which, as we learned from our guests in last episode, there are actually 3 Cayman Islands. So Grand Cayman Islands is just the biggest one where all the stuff happens. Did not know that. Fascinating stuff. Hey, Play Games for Fun. Good to see you in the chat. Thank you for coming. And Tom, thank you for the congratulations. Yes, this is episode 60. 60. So all of the reading that we did through in episode 56, where we read through the law, we actually read through all the hundreds of pages it was. There are some good reasons why management services, the director, the secretary, legal counsel, and management services, you'll find them in the Grand Cayman Islands. It's a very robust business environment. It's very tax friendly. It views laws favorably. And also, as we learned in last episode, the tokens are not seen as securities by the Grand Cayman Islands. So there are a lot of benefits to DAOs going to the Grand Cayman Islands. So we started going through the reg stack, right? That was our Companies Act, our Foundations Company Law, our Companies Management Act, our Directors Registration and Licensing Law, the Citation of Acts of Parliament Law, the Virtual Asset Service Provider Act, and the Securities Investment Business Law. All right, that was part 1. And then in part 2, we went over the case law with Ernest. And then part 3, which we just did, was our professional law from input from Walker's Global. So when you look at all of these key words, all in the foundation documents for our DAO, you start to see all of these buzzwords, right? And in episode 56, when we did the reg stack, we went over all of these words, and you should have a pretty good understanding, if you've watched them by now, what a subscriber is. Why did we pay $50? What is a memo of association? What is limited by guarantee? What is a foundation company? Why does it need to be without any share capital for us? All of these things became important. And as we read through them today, you will now understand how they all apply, which is what today's episode is about, applying everything we've learned. We also went through what I thought was happening, my best guess for the creation of the foundation company. And as we learned in episode 59, I got a few things wrong. That's okay. I did the best I could with what I had. And then the experts came on in episode 59, clarified a bit more where the DAO selects service providers and selects its legal advisor. That legal advisor then provides advice. The DAO will select its corporate services, so that's director and the secretary. The secretary is licensed by CIMA. The director is not. Most of the time, we learned in episode 59, the director is not licensed by the director's registration and licensing law. That would only apply under security. So I did get that one right when I questioned it. So we reflect it here. And then the Memorandum of Association, the Articles of Association, which is called the Constitution, it's created. The registrar will declare the foundation company to be a foundation company, and it's incorporated within the Grand Cayman Islands. All of that means that you can become a foundation company and start doing stuff, start DAOing for us. And there's still a question to me as to how that plays out day to day, but we are learning that a lot more now with Digging in the Sand podcast with Cyril explaining how things work, and also with our lawyer guests, who I hope to have back on, and we can start talking about a little bit how these entities all and responsibilities all play together. But today we'll be answering that for ourselves. That TLDR was in the foundation company. That foundation company word is both the name of the Sandbox DAO and a type of company within the Grand Cayman Islands. It's flexible in how it's structured and operates. An exempted company means the company that does business outside of the Grand Cayman Islands. Limited by guarantee means that a member of the foundation can only lose what they put into the company. Without any share capital means that as far as units of ownership, no units of ownership were created when the foundation company, was formed. Articles in Memorandum of Association means the memo creates the foundation company, the articles describe how it will be operated, and the bylaws establishes internal business rules. All three of which we will be reading through today. Lots of business is done in the Cayman Islands. Almost 1,000 companies registered in 1 month alone, and there are 121,000 companies that are active within the Grand Cayman Islands. That is a lot of business being done. Foundation rules are flexible and varied. That is why you see a lot of resignations, stand-up things, and all the stuff we described in our last episode 59. Subscriber and secretary roles are very important. Member, director, officer, supervisor, manager roles all seem secondary, but that's only to how the foundation is stood up. As we learned in episode 59, there is a transition from a director-led to a token holder-led. All right, we also then in part 2, that's episode 57, SANDDAO 57 with Ernest, who is a practicing lawyer in the United States. We talked about all of the current DAOs things that are happening with Aoki DAO, Oki DAO, BZX DAO, Lido DAO, some things that are currently on our minds. We also went over some opinions, some different court decisions, how it plays into, the Dapper Labs, Uniswap, Tornado Cash, Compound DAO, Coinbase, which I just watched another episode with Coinbase and their lawyer talking about how the changing administration is bringing different regulatory changes. So check out that. Just look Coinbase lawyer podcast, and you'll see some of the ones that just was posted. We looked over the SEC's investigative report back in 2017, also its framework in April 2019. And then we talked about some important jurisdictional concepts called the long arm statute, which basically means that the United States can touch or sue a company outside of the United States, the conduct and effects test, and the Dodd-Frank Act, which pretty much reinforces what I just said. All right. We also went over the United States version of a foundation company called a DAO LLC, how Tennessee, Vermont, Utah, Wyoming all have different types of DAO LLCs. And Particularly what you hear a lot nowadays is the DUNA, Decentralized Unincorporated Nonprofit Associations, which we learned under the state of Wyoming takes a nonprofit LLC approach to DAOs, whereas an LLD, a limited liability decentralized autonomous organization, LLD, is in the state of Utah. They take a more for-profit approach to DAO LLCs. All right, we went over all of that. And then we went into our opinion pieces that we were looking at, one of which was the Walker's Global. Those two authors were Melissa Lim and Carolyn Kelly, who we just had on in our episode 59. That was part 3. We went over why would a DAO form in a Cayman Islands Foundation company in the Cayman Islands. We learned a lot of cool stuff about separate legal personalities, it being memberless, the shield of liability, real world contracts that it can do things off chain. We went over through a timeline of events that basically went over how foundation companies are formed. And this is according to Walker's Global. So Walker's Global is one council that you can choose to do it of many. And clearly Walker's Global has done this a lot. They're an international firm. So they went through the whole director-led, the token holder-led, which I did not know. That was the most surprising thing, is the phased approach that DAO companies take. And then we went, what documents are required to form a foundation company? That is the basis of today, which is the Memorandum of Association, the Articles of Association. We'll be talking through all of these things here today, episode 60, part 4. You are now caught up. But if you want to take a look at those episodes in depth, 56, 57, 59, and 60, and you'll see all the stuff we learned up until today. Hey, Play Games for Fun, how are you doing in the chat? So here's how we're going to approach today. We're going to take a look at all of the things that are in SIPs 1, 2, and 3. And we're going to do this from scratch. I used to have this whole like pre-prepared things, but after we take in all of what we learned from the past 4 parts, I'm going to do this from scratch as if I've never seen this before. But having read and understood everything that we have talked about up until this point. Okay, so we're going to start with the Memorandum of Association, which is called the Constitution, the Articles of Association, which is also part of the Constitution. Then we're going to go through the Bylaws, which is not the Constitution, and you'll go over why that's important that I lined that out there. Then we'll go over the Sandbox DAO Entity Search. We'll look at the Stamp DAO Document Search and the regulated entities, all of which you can publicly search for yourself right now if you really wanted to. All right, then we'll go over whatever remaining questions that we have as we talk through all this stuff, and then we will conclude and talk about what's going to happen next. Okay? Play Game for Fun said he's doing good, trying to create mini games. Yep, Builders Challenge 3 is started, right? Right around the corner, or started. So please participate if you'd like. Participate in our ecosystem. If you are new, go check out the Game Maker and the Vox Edit. It's free, it's in-house. And go sign up for Magic Palette, which will make your life so much easier when it comes to creating your maps, creating your experiences. All right, let's get into it. So we start first with the Memorandum of Association. It is part of the Constitution. The Constitution is the memo and the articles. Well, the Sandbox Foundation and currently the Memo of Association is mentioned in SIP number 2. SIP number 2 is, we'll go to our proposals here on our website, the Sandbox DAO website, go under proposals, voting SIPs. If you scroll all the way down the bottom, go to page 2, go to SIP number 2 here, and you'll see SIP number 2 was a resubmitted SIP, the Sandbox Foundation. All right, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time here. This is publicly available. It can be read quite easily. So here is SIP number 2. It had a yes vote. 93% of the community voted yes. And this SIP wanted to recognize the role of and to approve the steps taken to form the Sandbox Foundation as a legal entity supporting the Sandbox DAO. There's a lot of stuff in here that's really interesting. We will go over the actual document itself. So the foundation will be supported by a professional independent director, a supervisor, a secretary in a registered office, legal and compliance counsel. Okay, so the authorship was Arasakio, and ratify the engagement of the law firm Travers Thorpe Alberga, TTA, as legal counsel. Ratify the constitution of the constitutional documents of the foundation. Formally recognize the foundation as a Cayman Island entity aligned with and supporting the DAO. So that's the wrapping of the DAO that we learned about in episode 59. Ratify International Corporation Services Limited as the professional provider of secretary and registered services to the foundation. Ratify International Protectors and Advisors Limited as the founder and supervisor to the DAO. So those key words there we're about to learn about. Well, we already learned about, we're about to read. Ratify the legal expenses. Ratify the engagement of Michael Robinson as a professional independent director of the foundation and associated fees. So here we talk a lot of stuff here that we're about to read through. All right, so these are some TLDRs, but we're going to go through this in its entirety. Cayman Island law requires supervisor. We learned about that in episode 56, I believe it was, right? That was the one where we first went into the reading through everything. So we learned about it here, episode 56, and how the registered office plays a part per the law, which we learned about in 56 over here. And they engage TTA to advise the foundation's formation. There's a lot of benefits to it. And there's a risk analysis that the Cayman Island Foundation is not a guarantee that DAO members will not be found liable for actions taken by the foundation based on the vote of such members. The reason why, as we learned, was because in episode 57, when we talked to Ernest, there's a lot of unresolved case law. And in 59, with our Cayman Island lawyer guests, we learned that a lot of these things have not been fully tested yet because foundation companies are only 4, 5, 6 years old. Okay. And we went over a summary here. There were some legal fees that we approved, some director services that we approved, metrics of success is that the foundation is ratified. And here we go, the appendix. The appendix is where you will find the articles and the Memorandum of Association. So we are currently talking about the Memo of Association. And let's go. Let's read through it. So while I'm reading, I'm going to be adding to this. That's going to be the whole thing. And then we will do that until we are done. It will take as long as it takes because this episode I've been building up to for a long time. So it's going to take as long as it's going to take. Here we go. So I just clicked the link in SIP number 2. You can look at this as well. It has a cover page, Memorandum of Association of the Sandbox Foundation, a foundation company limited by guarantee without any share capital. So over in our TLDR earlier in this episode, we went over what these words mean. Limited by guarantee means the founders only are liable for what it is that they guarantee. So normally that's money or assets that they give to the foundation company. Without any share capital means that the founders, there are no shareholders that have any units of ownership. Okay. Down on the cover page is the registered office, which we learned in SANDDAO 56 is required. You have to have a registered office, and you must, in the articles, explain where they are located. So we did some explanations for where South Church Street was in Georgetown on the Grand Cayman Islands and the building that it was in. So that was this one here in the Grand Cayman Islands. Right there. Harbor Building and Ugland Building. That's on South Church Street. Okay. Down here in the bottom right, you might it's probably easy to miss is hold on just a second. Okay. So in the top right, you'll see the Grand Cayman Islands there, and exempted foundation company registered and filed as number 404930 on 20 November 2023. When we get to the entity search, you'll see just how you can use that information to publicly search things that are publicly available. I will show you how to do that. All right, an exempted company means that it is exempted from a lot of the rules that a company in the Grand Cayman Islands, so any normal business in the Grand Cayman Islands, like the local feed store or the bait and tackle shop, whatever, they are not an exempted foundation company. They're not an exempted company. Whereas a foundation company is exempted, meaning it does its business outside of the Grand Cayman Islands. So there's the assistant registrar, which is a required signature in order to make this document go into effect. And then down below, we have the authorization code. That is an important thing if you want to search what this document is in the public search. So authorization code H61869906112, and you can verify it there. The link verify.gov.ky. I already did that for you. I will show you later on what that looks like. All right. Page 2 of 5. Memorandum of Association of the Sandbox Foundation, a foundation company limited by guarantee without any share capital. Okay, so it kind of repeats there. Section 1. The name of the foundation company is the Sandbox Foundation. As we learned, the foundation is not just a noun, it is also a verb. It describes what type of company we have in the Grand Cayman Islands. Section 2. The foundation company is a company within the meaning of the Companies Act, revised, and the foundation company and a foundation company within the means of the Foundations Company Act. And again, the reason why you'll see foundation company law, Companies Act, Foundation Company Act is because in one of the read-throughs that we did in our reg stack for SANDDAO 56, we learned that what used to be called law was then revised to everything was going to be called an act back in like 2019, 2020. So that was just something that I guess the ruling body of the Grand Cayman Islands decided to reduce confusion. We're just going to call everything that was used to be called a law is now called an act. Okay, the registered office of the foundation company shall be at the offices of Air National Corporation Standards Limited, P.O. Box 472, second floor, Harbor Place, 103 South Church Street, Georgetown, Grand Caymans, KY1 1106, in the Grand Caymans, or at such other place as the directors may from time to time decide. So there's your exemption right there. Where the Grand Cayman Islands, we have a foundation company that's exempted under them, but we're allowed to do business anywhere in the world. Okay, so that was down here in the bottom right, the screen here we're looking at. This is where the buildings are. If you do a Google Maps Street View and look up Harbor Place, 103 South Church Street, there it is. And look at SANDDAO 56 for the revelation and the breakdown of that. Okay, so Section 3. The objects for which the foundation company is established are Section A, subsection A, to independently support, educate, and encourage the use and adoption of the sandbox ecosystem and related infrastructure and digital assets to include sand, land, and other NFTs. Okay. We established in episode 59 with our guest lawyers that if you are, you may or may not be applicable to the Virtual Asset Service Providers Act. We don't believe we are. However, we would need our lawyers, who is TTA, Travers, Thorpe, and Alberga, to advise us, our foundation company, whether or not we are. I have not heard from them. I have not asked them that question, so I do not know what their advice is to our DAO admin team. But I'll probably ask that sometime in the future. Maybe that's one of my Q&As. Hey, how about that? That's the whole point of this thing. All right, so what is the question? On page 2, All right, and I'm down here. So on page 2, section 3A, we want to know, does the VASP, which is a Virtual Asset Service Provider Act, apply to the Sandbox DAO Foundation? All right, and we want to reference the digital assets word. Okay, so there you go. There's one question already. Back to our memo. So subsection B under paragraph or section 3, to act as a holding company and investment company with no restrictions on the on the objects or operations of its subsidiaries or on the nature of its or their investments. So we learned in episode 59 from our Cayman Islands lawyers' guess that in order to ensure that sometimes to ensure that it remains compliant with Cayman Island law and that the Security Investment Business Act or the Virtual Asset Service Provider Act does not become applicable, because that increases your registration requirements from your director. So right now we're most likely not. We do not have a registered director under the Directors Registration Licensing Act. Let's make that another question. Is our director a licensed director under the DIRLL? The directors, let's look at our registration, our reg stack. What was that again? Our directors registration and licensing law. So it's the DRLL, excuse me. And though there are 3 types of directors, we learned that in SANDDAO 56, independent, corporate, and I can't remember the third right now. But is our director licenses under the DRLL? That is that brings into a whole lot of new stuff. So where I'm seeing some keywords here is a holding company and investment company. So does the Securities Investment Business Act, CIBA, does that apply? We learned about that more in 56 and also 59 when our Cayman Island lawyer guests went over those things and how it could be applicable. But we would need our legal counsel that we pay as a SANFAM, the TTA. We would need them to advise us. Are they? Are we? So we want to know, and this is again page 2, section 3. This is section B, section 3B. Again, section 3B is does the CIBA, Securities Investment Business Act, apply to the Sandbox DAO Foundation? We would like to know that. Is our director a licensed director under DRLL? Okay. So those are already 4 questions we'd like to ask. All right. Section 3C, to provide the objects for which the foundation company established are to provide financial assistance or benefits to beneficiaries designated under the Articles of Association. So one thing I was curious about from SANDDAO 56 is, who are the beneficiaries? Is our DAO, our voting DAO, our SANFAM, are they the beneficiaries? Who would that be? Is it SANFAM? All right. So again, you can see down here in the bottom middle, I am updating these questions as we go along. So we will stop. Okay. So that's section 3C. So now let's go to section 3D, as in Delta. To do all such things as in the opinions of the directors are or may be incidental or conducive to the above objects or any of them. So it basically frees the director to act in any way they see fit under sections 3A through C, through Alpha through Charlie. Okay. Okay, so that is section 3 of the memo. Section 4. The foundation company shall have and be capable of exercising all the functions of a natural person of full capacity, irrespective of any question or corporate benefit, as provided by Section 27(2) of the Companies Act. And without prejudice to the foregoing generality, the foundation company has the following powers, which may be exercised only in promoting the objects for which the foundation company is established. So basically, what this saying is that Section 4 and all of these things we're about to go over promotes Section 3A through D, which we just read. All right, so Section 4 is expanding on Section 3A. And only those who have full capacity, which, having read this and the articles, they have a definition for what that full capacity means. Okay, so Section 4A. The following powers which may be exercised is to promote or carry out research. Section 4B, to employ paid or unpaid agents, staff, or advisors. Section 4C, to provide advice. Section 4D, to publish or distribute information. Section 4E, to cooperate with other bodies. Section 4F, to support, donate to, administer, or set up charities or not-for-profit organizations. Section 4G, to raise funds, but not by means of taxable trading. Section 4H, to borrow money and give security for loans. Section 4H, to acquire or hire property of any kind. Section 4J, to let or dispose of property of any kind. Section 4K, to make grants or loans of money and to give guarantees. Section 4L, to promote, incorporate, acquire, manage, control, and operate for commercial gain one or more subsidiary companies in any jurisdiction of the world, and to exercise all powers necessary with respect to the ownership of such subsidiary companies. We learned in episode 59 with our lawyer guests that such subsidiaries may be a British Virgin Islands subsidiary that is for profit, and to do things that would such as securities or virtual asset things that they so that they can remain compliant with the Grand Cayman Islands law, to where if you do engage in securities activities or virtual asset activities, you are subject to increased laws. All right, that was our reg stack that we went over. All right, looked a little bit like this down here. That was our reg stack. So if you did virtual asset things or security investment things, you became subject to these acts. We went over that in SANDDAO episode 57 in depth and detail. So our lawyers from episode 59, I say our lawyers, the lawyer guests from Walker's Global in episode 59, they articulated that in order to remain compliant to where you do not have to be subject to these things, you would create a subsidiary, which is a separate legal personality, and you can then incorporate it anywhere else in the world. And what we're learning now as we read through our memorandum of association, that the powers invested in the foundation company is that they may promote, incorporate, acquire, manage, control, and operate for commercial gain one or more subsidiary companies in any jurisdiction in the world. So we have freed ourselves to do that. The foundation company has freed itself to do that. Section 4M, to set aside funds for special purposes or as reserves against future expenditure. Section 4N, to deposit or invest funds in any manner. And Section 4O, as an Oscar, to do anything else within Cayman Islands law and regulation which promotes or may help to promote the objects for which the foundation company is established. So it basically just reiterated itself. Okay? And again, that Section 4 is an extrapolation, an expansion, an increase of Section 3. Section 3 established why the foundation company exists. What is it here to do? Section 4 gives powers to expand on Section 3. All right, so Section 5. The foundation company may not carry on a business for which a license is required under the laws of the Cayman Islands unless duly licensed. That is why it isn't. We learned in episode 56, SANDDAO 56, why it is an exempted company. Okay? I don't. Give me a second. I will pull that in here. Oh, you know what? I have that already up. So that was episode 34. Here's episode 56. And in episode 56, we talked about not that. It was here under the specifically under the general registry. We talked about types of companies. Here we go. The visual overview that we went over in episode 56, how it was a company that was exempt, which made a foundation, and we chose Foundation Company, which made the Companies Act, Limited Liabilities Companies Act, the Foundation Company Law. Those all became, we became subject to them. And also we learned that under a limited, our liability as shareholders, which is under the types of company that registers, company register, types of companies, and then you click liability of shareholders. We learned that the liability of shareholders and members is limited by guarantee without share capital. And that was when we just read the Memo of Association. So we're reading that now, where we, under page 5, which is what we just read, limited by guarantee without any share capital. So full circle. Here we are. Actually reading page 5, where it says what it is we can and cannot do. So how cool is that? How cool is that? Just in case we have to go back to it. Take a look. Okay, we'll go back to it here if we have to. All right, let's get back to our reading of the Memo of Association. So that was section 5, section 5. Section 6, no portion of the income or property of the foundation company from whatever place or source shall be paid or transferred directly or indirectly by way of dividend, bonus, or otherwise, howsoever, by way of profit to the members, proposed members, directors, or supervisors of the foundation company as such, apart from authorized remuneration for services to the foundation company. All right, what in the world does that say? Let's break that down. No portion of the income or property of the foundation company. Okay, so it's saying that whatever income or property that the foundation has, none of it shall be paid or transferred directly to the members, proposed members, directors, or supervisors of the foundation company, except as authorized remuneration. Remuneration means compensation, paid, them getting paid. So this is saying that nothing in the foundation company can be directly or indirectly transferred to the proposed members, directors, or supervisors. So this is protecting the DAO's assets right here. So all of the, whatever custody it has of wallets, so let's say all the millions of sand or lands, perhaps maybe the lands that we delegated to the director. That's a great question. Let's ask that question. So we're in section 6, which is page 3. Page 3. Are we really? Yeah, page 3 of 5. Okay. So in section 6, is this protecting the DAO's assets? So that would be land and sand and its new collection, the NFT collection, that we're getting from TSB imminently, or maybe we already have it, from being given or gifted to foundation staff. Let's call them staff. Foundation, staff. All right, we think that's exactly what this is saying. That no portion of the income or property of that foundation company shall be paid or transferred to members, proposed members, directors, or supervisors of the company, except what is authorized as part of their salary. That's what I think this is saying. So we would want to ask our lawyers, TTA, and the DAO admin team, is that true? Because that's a good thing to protect the DAO right there. Right? They can't just give themselves 2,000 lands. They can't just give themselves all the bored apes and the mutant apes that we're about to get from as a gift and endowment from the Sandbox Game Company. Right? They can't just be given away. All right. That's good. That's good protection. Section 7 of the memo. The liability of the members is limited. We already understand what that means. Section 8. The foundation company may cease to have members. I did not know what this meant until episode 59. All right, so our Melissa and Carolyn, when they came on just the other day, explained in their brief that a company can be memberless. Where'd it go? Where's the word memberless? Memberless. All right, here. Why would a DAO form a Cayman Foundation company? And a foundation company fits within the decentralized ethos as it can be memberless. When I asked them what did that mean, that meant stakeholders. There are no stakeholders, which if when we talked about this in episode 56, if you have shareholders, you have a fiduciary responsibility to maximize shareholder value, which is profit. So this removed the profit motive from the DAO. And you know what? I want to make sure that's an answerable question. So on page 3, section 6. Wait, is it section 6 or is it section 8? Excuse me, section 8. Does this relate to the memberless part that removes the profit incentive, responsibility, the profit incentive, there we go, for maximization of shareholder value consistent with fiduciary duties of the director, right? So that is a very fascinating question. I really want to know the answer to that one. So this whole, does the foundation may cease to have members, which we learned in episode 59, that there's when you first stand up a company and foundation under advisement by Walkers, so we are under advisement by TTA, we may have done it different. But Walker said they do it by standing up a company which is director-led, right? And has no one else, director-led. The subscriber immediately resigns, so it makes it basically leaderless. But then it's director-led to where only the director has the power to do everything. Then they transition and modify all the documents to be a token holder-led. And that's where the DAO comes into play, the actual DAO governance. Us, the DAO admin team. So here it says the foundation company may cease to have members in section 8. So does this relate to that memberless thing where memberless would mean stakeholders or shareholders and the fiduciary responsibility to maximize shareholder value? So is that what that means here? We'd want to ask our lawyers, TTA. Okay, section 9. Each person who is a member undertakes to contribute the assets of the foundation company in the event of the foundation company being wound up during the time that the person is a member, or within 1 year afterwards, for payment of the debts and liabilities of the foundation company contracted before the time at which the person ceases to be a member. and the cost, charges, and expenses of the winding up of the foundation company, and for the adjustments of the rights of the contributories among themselves, such amounts as may be required, not exceeding the sum of $1 US. All right, that was a mouthful. So what does that mean? Each person who is a member undertakes to contribute to the assets of the foundation company. All right, so that means people who become a member, they contribute things to this foundation company of ours. And in the event of the foundation company being wound up, meaning created, so that's what this memo does, it creates the foundation company during the time that the person is a member. So when the person who's the member contributes assets to the foundation company, or within 1 year after that, for payments of the debts and liabilities of the company, the foundation company contracted before the time. All right. So this is saying that the person who gives stuff to the foundation company when it's created is responsible for the debts and liabilities of the foundation company for up to 1 year. And we learned all about this in episode 56. There was a part where we talked about the whole 1 year afterwards. Actually, let's go right here. 1 year. Oops, that's not it. There it is. Section 49 of the Companies Act, right? The liability of past and present members of the company. All right, we learned that if a company's wound up, every member is required. Wound up. Oops, wound up means liquidated. Excuse me. If a company is wound up, as in liquidated or removed, every member is required to contribute to the assets to satisfy the debts, and past members who are active up to 1 year prior. For companies limited by guarantee, no member is required to pay more than what the Memo of Association cites as guarantee. And guess what? We just cited as we are requiring that they are not required to spend any more than $1. All right, so that's how we protect. It looks like that's how we're protecting our founding members who resign immediately, most likely. We'll find out when we ask the question. Most likely resigned, right? So those members who stood the company up and gave it its starting assets, some of them may have resigned, but up to 1 year after, per Cayman Island law, they're required to pay debts and liabilities. Okay? But because we're an exempted company, we are saying that they will not pay more than $1. All right. So that's a way for us to protect ourselves. That's Section 9. Section 10. If on the winding up, which also means liquidation or dissolution of the foundation company, there remain surplus assets after the satisfaction of its debts and liabilities, the same shall be applied or distributed under the Articles of Association of the foundation company and, subject hereto, shall be paid or transferred to such charitable objects as shall be decided by ordinary resolution of the foundation company. We'll get into ordinary resolutions within when we do the Articles of Association. For now, all we really need to take from this is that if this company is dissolved, if it is wound up, then we shall donate these our remaining assets to charitable charities, or applied or distributed under the Articles of Association. So we'll read what that means later. All right, so that's Section 10. Almost through. We're almost through our 5 pages. Section 11. This memorandum and the Articles of Association may be altered by the founder, by notice to the foundation company, or by special resolution of the foundation company, except that none of clauses 6, 10, or 11 of this memorandum may be altered, and no other alteration may be made which is in any way inconsistent with clauses 6, 10, or 11. All right, so what is clauses 6, 10, and 11? Clauses 6 is no portion of the income. So that's where people can't just donate stuff to themselves. So the director may not gift himself 10 Bored Ape Yacht Clubs, 10 apes that we're about to get from the Sandbox game company. right? So the supervisor may not give itself 100,000 sand. Okay, so section 11 here is saying that no adjustment may be made to that. All right, so what does section 10 say? If there are any surplus assets, if the company is dissolved, the remaining assets shall be applied or distributed in a way consistent with the Articles of Association or donated to charity. Okay, so more protections here. And then clause 11 is this clause. So this clause is saying it cannot be modified. So it is enshrining unalterable rights and rules that no one can change. And as far as we can tell, these three changes, these three clauses or sections are protections to stop someone from becoming giving themselves all the assets, basically rugging. So it's basically a way to stop rugging from happening. Okay, that was section 11. All right, and then we go to page 5, which we're starting to be done here. We, the subscriber of this memo of association, wish to form a foundation company limited by guarantee without any share capital and registered as an exempted company, in each case pursuant to this memo of association, and we agree that we shall, upon the demands being made by the foundation company, pay to the foundation company an amount equal to the amount of the guarantee agreed to be made by each member of the foundation company in accordance with paragraph 9 of this memorandum of association. So that's basically a rehash of what we just read in the 5 pages. Right? So we're going to form a foundation company. It is limited to the amount that people give in section 9. And if the company is dissolved, the people who have given those resources are only required to pay up to $1. The rest is paid for by what is in the DAO. And then whatever is left over gets sent to charity or as applied or distributed and consistent with the Articles of Association. Okay? That is what this paragraph says. All right, that's dated 20 November 2023. The name of the company that signed this, that stood this company up, International Corporation Services Limited. Its address and description is Harbor Place, 2nd floor, 103 South Church Street, P.O. Box 472, Grand Cayman, and the zip code is KY1-1106. It was authorized by this person, and it was witnessed by this person. Okay. We had just read through and concluded the Memorandum of Association. That was some cool stuff. That was some very cool stuff. So what are our questions? Let's get to our questions. Our questions were on page 2, section 3A, does the Virtual Asset Service Provider Act apply to the Sandbox DAO Foundation? Our next question was, is our director a licensed director under the Directors Registration and Licensing Law? I don't think so. I don't think that's true. I don't think they are. But it's good to ask. Section 3B, does the securities investment business? Done. Yeah, okay. For some reason, that just read wrong to me. Question number 4, under Section 3B, does the Security Investment Business Act apply to the Sandbox DAO Foundation? Question 5, Section 3C, who are the beneficiaries? Is it SandFam? Are we? Someone else? All right, question 6, page 3, section 6. Is this protecting the DAO's assets, which is the land, sand, and NFT collection that's about to be given to us from the Sandbox? Yeah. Is it protecting the DAO's assets from being given or gifted to foundation staff? Let's call it not needlessly, but unreasonably, right? Because what the one thing that they can give themselves is a salary, is compensation for their services. So unreasonable, right? let's say unreasonably gifted. Okay. And then our 7th question, page 3, section 8. Does this relate to the memberless part that removes the profit incentive for the maximization of shareholder value, which is not consistent, required by financiary duty? Not financial, required by fiduciary duty. So let's read that again. Does this relate to the memberless part that removes the profit incentive for maximization of shareholder value required by fiduciary duty of the director? Okay. That was our Memorandum of Association. How about that? This is going very well. I'm so glad that we waited to to read through this after reading the law in episode 56, after discussing the case law with a practicing U.S. attorney in episode 57, after discussing Cayman Islands Foundation Company particulars with Melissa and Carolyn from Walker's Global and a law firm in the Cayman Islands in episode 59. And now we're in episode 4 reading through the actual stuff. It makes so much more sense now. It makes so much more sense. This is cool. This is cool stuff. This is how your DAO is being run. All right. So when everyone thinks that there's a cabal going or that it's really shady, what's going on, it's not once you read through all this. Once you read through all this, it makes sense. It's starting to make a lot of sense. So that was our analysis of the Memo of Association. All right. Next up, we're going to be doing the Articles of Association, but I'm going to take a quick break, and you should too. I will see you in 5 minutes. So let's set a 5-minute countdown, and then we will return